This video is brought to you in association with Dubby Energy Blend. Use the coupon code Ginger Media Limited to get 10% off your next purchase. Link in the description. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Raw is Ginger.
Well, everybody, welcome back to the next episode of Raw is Ginger. With me, as always, is John Toner and Andrew Durning. Guys, how are we?
Surviving, just about. What about yourself, Toner? How are you getting on?
I'm surprisingly perky today.
Right, the ways that we have to start these conversations now. So first, Kev, what mug? Nice. First, I actually thought I looked a bit like dragon scales.
No, it's a mad flower.
A mad flower. Well, and then the second question I never thought, well, actually, I know I would ask my mate regardless. How's your boss, Toner?
Very much the same.
Yeah, it sounds about right. But what type of pain meds are you on for it?
Oh, where are they? I can't remember now, but I try and not take them every day.
Yeah.
So I don't wind up addicted.
You do have a very addictive personality. We have covered this on other episodes of several podcasts. Yeah. But yeah, I'll kind of lead the charge of what we're going to be talking about today, since it was kind of my idea, and I apologize in advance to everybody. At this point in time, we have now covered some WWE matches. We've covered a WCW match, and we've covered an ECW match, which begs the question about the infamous Alliance Invasion storyline. We've all heard the negatives about it. We've heard every negative under the sun about it. And we'll talk about some of them as well. But what I really wanted to know was it really that bad? I did not know much about WCW or ECW. I was WWF kid. So when the Invasion and the Alliance stuff started happening, I had no clue that these guys were, lower mid card guys. Like that the main ones were DDP and Booker T, that were well known. What now, obviously, I know it in hindsight is a wonderful thing, but at the time, I did have issues with it, but it had nothing to do with the wrestlers. It was to do with the actual story itself, and where I think certain things kind of went awry. But you guys, obviously knew of WCW and ECW and their pomp and who wasn't there and who was there. So we'll start off with, kind of initial thoughts from back then. And then we've all kind of had a gander and rewatched some of the Alliance Invasion stuff. We'll discuss it and maybe give our opinions on where we think the tide kind of turned from being, it's all right, because parts of it were all right, to no, that's the tipping point. So, Kev, what were your initial thoughts when you first watched it back in the day?
Well, this is a controversial thing, but I enjoyed it. I would have preferred it if they'd got some of the bigger names from WCW at the time. I know there was contract disputes and stuff like that, and they couldn't buy some of the contracts, so they couldn't get some of the bigger names, which was a disappointment for the fans and for potential big matches at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But for the people they got in, it was like upper mid-card people. It was people who were slogging every day in WCW. They were basically the guys that were coming in and doing all the work, and then the last half hour of the show, the NWO were coming in and everybody's just talking about them. But these were the guys that were actually getting the people to stay, because they weren't staying for the NWO. At that point, people had ran its course, and people like, the NWO is being a piece of shit. I can't be bothered with them anymore. But it was these people that were there doing the work, and then it got showcased in this whole storyline. I mean, it was like near enough the entire year of 2001. They'd been building it.
Yeah.
And it didn't really stop until like Survivor Series in November. Yeah. So that's like more than half the year was based around this. It's like the longest running story that they've had over the entire thing. It wasn't like single separate stories going on. That was the story. It was WWF versus the Alliance. That was it. Every match was something to do with that. It wasn't about specifics. They could have different people, and it showcased different people's talents against other people. So I enjoyed it.
Toner, your thoughts?
Hated it.
There we go. The man of controversy for the controversy's sake. What?
Tell you why.
Because bear in mind, Kev, we'll do a wee side tangent like we always do. Toner was on my podcast talking about like our ideal Celtic starting 11 from our eras. I put in James Forrest, and he said, empty jersey. Yes. We had a debate about this on the camera for quite a while. And then when it came to the managers, I picked Brendan Rodgers. He picked Martin O'Neill. I was still going with Martin O'Neill anyway because of his European record, but Toner was just like, right, I'm fucking going for you. And in fairness, I fought my corner pretty well, I've got to say, because I listened to it back a few times, and I thought I did not bad, and then, so we finished the podcast, come off, and he just turns to me and goes, Andy, I'm actually all right with James Forrest. And I just burst out laughing. And I was like, you fucker, you absolute fucker. In fairness, I will have a controversial take that will definitely rile Toner up. So, but anyway, you hated it. Why?
Again, and I get, obviously everything that Kev kind of went through and said, yep, 100%. A lot of these guys were kind of grafters, they were workers, but not all of them were established, were names, had build-ups or anything. Mine is perhaps, in my opinion, would be the best wrestler to have come out of it from that kind of sector, being Booker T.
RVD as well.
And the amount that Booker T done in the kind of time frame, so he goes right into like rivalries with Stone Cold and stuff, and I think he held that pretty well. But there wasn't, because of the way they'd done the storyline, obviously there wasn't a build up to these people. If you watched WCW and you were, an avid fan, you knew who all these guys were. I watched it, I knew who they were, but yeah, there's all these matches, all these things you wanted to see. But then for me, what they done was, and they knew when this happened, that this batch of guys that we've got is not strong enough. So what we have to do is we then need to start. I mean, how many tons was there for different wrestlers? How many wrestlers would come out sporting ECW tops, WCW, all this kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Because they knew that the roster there for that was pretty weak. It would not hold up fully. I thought, yeah, it done its job. It had a bit of an interesting angle. It was different, something that had never been done before. I felt they dragged it out massively, to the point I felt it got repetitive in the sense of, who's turning this week? Who's fighting against him this week? How many times are other wrestlers from the Alliance going to jump out and try and take over, or is it going to be WWF's turn to do that this week? And I felt it started to become quite predictable, quite mundane, pretty boring. And again, the whole host of stars, due to contracts and money and everything else that they didn't get, if they had them, it's a completely different ball game. That is two top factions going at it. But they had to, it's like if you as a kid are playing football and you turn up and your teams get 13 players and the other teams get 8, you're handing a few players over, a couple of players over to kind of even it up a bit. And that was essentially what they were doing.
In a
but
way,
done it that much,
doing
it once or twice, I get, for the purposes of story, dramatic effect, keeping people guessing. But it was done that many times with wrestlers, you just thought, right, this is boring.
Yeah. I was obviously watching some of the stuff and watching some of the, other analysis around it. And the fact that one of the people that was on the Alliance side that actually got their profile boosted up again was Test, who was WWF WWE original because he jumped ship. Well, in fairness, I could have seen that, but I mean, there was lots of points where the train came off the tracks, and we can discuss it right now. So, Kev, when specifically did you think, right, we're at the point of no return here, they need to wrap this up?
It was probably about mid-September. It started when Shane McMahon bought WCW. That's when they started the whole thing, and that was in April.
Yeah.
Between April and July, there was only bits here and there. It wasn't like a full thing.
Yeah.
And then in July, it was the Invasion pay-per-view, and that was supposed to finish it.
Yeah.
Now, I thought the wee bits here and there, and then to that was great. And then they're like, no, we're going to continue it to Survivor Series. I was like, right, well, let's see how this is going to go. And like Tony was saying, it did get repetitive after a bit. And they weren't using the right people at the right time. The whole thing was basically Vince wanted to bury WCW and ECW. That's where it was going to go. You could see it coming. Because Vince isn't going to say, oh, I'm going to lose. That's not in his vocabulary. He doesn't lose. So it was going to end like that. I watched a couple of the Invasion matches, and then I watched the Survivor Series, the final match. I agree with what Tony was saying. A lot of it was very predictable. You could tell who was going to turn one week or the other. One thing that I didn't like about it is they didn't give Paul Heyman enough to do. He was basically just there. They didn't give him a microphone as much as they should have.
Don't get me wrong, the times they gave him a microphone was fucking brutal.
Always is.
As we knew with the infamous Vince McMahon promo, where he said that he wasn't going to hold back. And Vince was like, well, it draw me money. Yes. Okay, don't hold back. So there was points there that I thought, well, when they did give him the mic, he was great. When he was on the commentary with JR, he was great. Because everybody knows that I am a Paul Heyman fan. I love his promo style. I love his confidence and how well he does promos. He's great. That actually brings me to a question, and it's a question I'm directing for you, Toner, because it's about a certain person that that you like, who essentially became the owner of the ECW, Stephanie McMahon. Is that where you think that the wheels were starting to fall off?
For me, you could argue probably several points is where the wheels kind of fell off it. It was continually, how can we push this further? How can we draw a bit more out of this? I mean, you get the feeling that obviously what they were looking to do was try and pull as many of the... Because obviously, like you were, avid WWF, knew about WCW and things, weren't really an avid watcher, maybe more a casual watcher. You're going to have people in the WCW camp that are the exact same. Not massive WWF watchers, but, will tune in every now and again. And you felt that they were trying to hold this out for so long to kind of try and draw more and more of these people in. And you think you're sitting looking at it and you're going, it's like, looking at my grandpa on his deathbed, you're going to die. As well just pulling that machine out, it's doing nothing for you.
Was waiting for one really inappropriate reference from you. I am going to tell you where I think the wheels came off, and Toner's going to fucking hate me. When Stone Cold turned to Alliance, I just thought, this is fucking shite. Well, it was...
I agree with that.
I think everything that he'd done was crap. Well, in that entire Alliance storyline from when he turned. Well, the kind of goofy, heel kissing Shane's ass and Kurt being his little, comedic buddy. I didn't like that either, because so long you've looked at Stone Cold as take no shite, take no prisoners. And as a heel, I thought that would be still a great way to go, but just double down on it. not become Vince McMahon's, third butt cheek, which was what he became. And then when this kind of alliance happened and it was starting well, I thought, I wasn't even too fussed about, I wasn't a fan of Stephanie McMahon coming in, but I thought, well, okay, I've been in this game long enough. I know it's a McMahon family drama. I knew that was coming. Fair dues. And so I rode with it. Didn't agree with it because I knew enough about ECW. I knew more about ECW and their style than I did about WCW. So I was like, these guys take no prisoners, and she's the $1 billion princess. That ain't gonna work. But I thought, we'll ride it out and we'll give it a chance. But see, the second that Stone Cold turned, I just thought, no, this is shit. Because all he was doing was just being a heel, but being a heel to his own team. You could say that maybe that was him, trying to do the tough love and draw out of them. But he did not benefit that side at all. It just became what a WWF guy has to run this team of B-list stars, air quotes. Because I don't believe that they were B-list stars. I think Stone Cold made them it. Because it's probably under the orders of Vince McMahon in real life, make them look like shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you are a massive Stone Cold fan, but I think that entire run for him was utter dross. It was
I mean, what it done was it reached
diabolical. I could go on and on.
But it reached a desperation. Just because I'm a fan doesn't mean I agree with every kind of storyline that they get put into. But what it done for the likes of Vince and everything else was it gave them that moment when there was the battling, outside in the car park, inside in the locker room, in the ring. Vince was at Austin, we need the old Stone Cold back. And then they got to go into this with that moment that he created of coming in and basically just fucking leathering, came in with a pipe, battered a few folk with that, flung a few folk about in the locker room, stuns folk in the ring, and then that's how you're heading in. It gave them that kind of, that all built up in the background for that moment for him to come in and it to be, look how strong we are. Now we've got this guy back at the front of us. I mean, and that was my point earlier on, when you seen the amount of people that, Austin wasn't, always a WWF guy. He's been elsewhere, obviously wrestling under different names and things, but Stunning Steve was not that character. He was, he had built what he built in there, and that was how much it reeked of desperation, the whole storyline, the whole angle for me, because then there was arguably at that time, one of, if not the biggest name in the roster before the whole invasion angle, and to make this even more interesting and to kind of try and get it to run its course and make it believable that they might win, he then has to jump ship, but then obviously ultimately jumping back.
One of the things that I think could have been a great thing if they'd done it right was, we all agree that DDP got shot on from a great height. That entire storyline of Undertaker. Oh, here we go, Mr. Controversy. Here we come.
No, that's what they all wanted. Big Show pitched for that to be him. DDP was buzzing that was him because he gets to work with the Undertaker. That's what they all wanted. That's what they all wanted to do. He said that he was so excited when he was told that was going to be him and he was going to be running with that story, because you're running ultimately with Mr. WWF. You're running with the locker room leader, the guy everyone looks to, probably one of the biggest characters in umpteen generations. He was so excited. Yes, from us looking in, we thought, shit. But for him, and he said this on numerous occasions, when that got told to him, he was ecstatic because he's getting to work with the Undertaker.
Yeah, but
I
he's
mean,
getting
I
told,
mean
he's getting told he can work with the Undertaker, but he's not getting told that his missus is going to pin him in the ring.
Yeah, but
He's
that's
gonna,
the whole
aye,
it's because of where he came from. It's let's
yeah.
make them look as shit as possible.
yeah, and I know that. But Kev, the
And
thing that
real,
I'll ask you
really,
about,
DDP had actually been in WWF before because he drove
Hmm.
the Honky Tonk Man down to the ring at WrestleMania
Yeah.
6. So he was
Yeah.
WWF before he was WCW. So
yeah, but he made his name in WCW,
he
and he
did,
was
yeah.
well, and at that point when the ship was starting to go down, he was still one of the top guys. And when out of all the ones that they were getting, bar Booker T, he was one of the big names.
Mm-hmm.
One of the theories that I had heard was that they should have made they should have built DDP properly and made him the big, like the kind of the like the Stone Cold, the threat. And I thought, well, that could have been something that happened at Invasion. You know, that like they didn't have the Undertaker, like Michelle, the Undertaker has Missy's storyline. It's all gone. As far as I'm concerned, like in this timeline, because we will be going into the timelines at some point. Stay tuned for that. So my timeline.
That was the creepiest wink I've ever seen anybody do to a camera.
Thank God you said wink. So that stuff hasn't happened. Well, we get to Invasion, and it looks like you're going to win. It looks like WWF's going to win. And then it's DDP that comes, and just diamond cutters the shit out of everybody, and pins Stone Cold for the win. It makes them look like a credible threat. Don't get me wrong. Then after that, they would probably try and bury him as best they can. But at least for that kind of shining moment, it wouldn't be that they had to rely on a WWF guy turning heel for them to have some sort of sense of credibility. Because DDP had went up against Goldberg and gave him a pretty damn good match, as we have discussed in a previous episode. He was proof that he could hold his own, and he was good at what he did. So what do you think, Kev? Do you think that could have been a good scenario, like having DDP kind of being like the forefront?
If they had got DDP in for that, it could have made the angle so much better. There's 3 or 4 people they could have brought in, right? So they got Booker T. If they had Booker T built up how they built him up, because they've done that very well, even though his first match in WWF under WCW was against Buff Bagwell, who gets sacked the same night.
Yeah.
The first and only person to main event a Raw and then be sacked the same night.
Well, technically it was a WCW pilot, so
yeah,
we can't count it as well.
But,
I wouldn't count it as Raw.
So you get Booker T, you get DDP in. If they just paid Sting what they wanted to pay him, their ratings would have went through the roof. They could have got Goldberg, and even just they 4 going against like the top guys. That would make so much money for them.
Yeah, but
they would have had to have paid the contracts.
I think that was the problem. It wasn't just the payment of the contracts as well. It was the guys like, for example, Goldberg saying, based on what was going to be offered, I'm making more money sitting in the house and doing nothing.
Yeah.
And that was what a lot of it did end up coming down to. You would have not had to, you bought that, you're then having to pay them ridiculous amounts of money. And then can you really imagine the likes of your big hitters in WWF sitting back and saying, yeah, that's fine. These guys are just coming in. They're coming in from a rival show and they're now on X, Y, and Z contract. Well, we now want to be at that level.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I'd been thinking about with that as well is Vince was Vince. He was burying them. His ego was not stopping. His ego is the size of 2 universes. So if he brought in Sting and he brought in Goldberg, and Sting had said this himself, that if he went at that point, they would butcher his character. And it took them a lot longer than expected to do it, but they did it. And they buried him. They would have buried, I think they would have buried Sting. They would have buried Goldberg because they done it to DDP. DDP, again, as I've said, he was a credible threat if presented in the right way. So what did they do? Make him a weirdo that was stalking the Undertaker's wife and get pinned by the Undertaker's wife, and get absolutely annihilated at King of the Ring. And
They've done the same.
And make
They've
him
done
look
the
like a
same with
punk-ass bitch.
NWO. Yeah, they've done the same with the NWO the next year. They brought them back.
Yep.
Then they done the same with and then they done the same with Goldberg the following year. So I think everybody talks about that, like them not being there at that point, and that could have been what the moneymaker. I personally think they made the right call, because especially Hulk Hogan knew Vince inside out, because Hulk Hogan should work him, and Vince has admitted that himself. So he would know, right, if I'm coming back, he's gonna just like do a Triple H to me, tell me that I have to eat shit and like it, would have just outright buried them. So I personally think it was the best call for them not to go, because I think their careers would have been totally annihilated.
Well, I mean, the people that did come from WCW before it folded, you look down the line, they were all like top tier guys eventually.
Yeah.
Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit. I'm not going to say Perry Saturn because they buried him.
But in fairness, like they tried burying him with the Moppy character, but people liked it.
They loved it. It was like Al Snow with Head.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
The whole thing about Head, that was Al Snow.
Yeah.
He went to create, was that, look, I want to just be completely insane. I've got this dummy head. I want to walk about with it. I want that to be my tag team partner in a match.
Yeah, but no,
and
I'm
I want to
about
lose. He's like, I want to lose. And they're going to put a bottle of Head and Shoulders and then pin it so that shoulders are on. That's how I want to lose the match. And that was against Too Cool. And Al Snow's like, that's how I want it to be done. So that was his idea. And they came to him, they're like, are you sure? It's like, yep. So he proved that something like that could work. Perry Saturn took it and ran with it. And it was one of the top segments of any show when he was on.
Yeah. And that actually pissed Vince off even more, because the whole point was it was to bury him. But it got an organic reach, because we're like, it's a guy in love with a mop and he's a fucking psycho, but he could kill us all. So we now love the mop. And yeah, I genuinely felt bad when Moppy got put in the wood chipper.
I think clearly Perry Saturn took that quite bad as well.
Yeah.
Well, I think if he'd been closer to the wood chipper, like Vince probably would have turned up behind him and pushed him in.
But all of that just shows that the WCW people could have ended up being big names for them, making them money. But like you said, his ego just would not let it go. He had to bury the entire company and everybody that was a part of it.
It's also like how, they were saying that they were wanting to get WCW kind of rebooted, and he was wanting to get back on Ted Turner's brand. Now, I think that was a good call when Ted basically said, "Stick it, ain't happening," because he would know that Vince would always have that win on him. Forget the fact that he has buried his company, like his wrestling business. He's going to reboot it and put it on his network. And the original plan was at the same time that they were competing against. Well, if that's not a kick in the sorry, Tony, I know yours are busted, kicking the balls, I don't know what is. It's unreal. It was basically like what eventually done with ECW. Well, that was basically what he was trying to do with WCW, and he thought, oh wait, I've actually got a second chance at this now with ECW. Let's destroy them. And they did. This video is brought to you in association with 7 Million Bikes Podcasts, providing a comprehensive step-by-step service, as well as accessing a range of affiliate partnerships to provide you with discounts on your podcasting journey. For a free consultation, the link will be in the description of this video. So we were talking about, guys like Booker T and DDP, who we wanted to see get a big push. Booker T came out of it unscathed. RVD was like, like essentially the rookie of the year in that case, for them. Like he was the one that got over organically. Is there anybody else that you guys think that either over time or maybe even just that kind of directly after it was maybe underrated or did go on and have a bit of a good run? My own pick is the Hurricane Shane Helms. Because I love superheroes. I love that gimmick. I loved his dedication to it, that he just ran with it, and he was what, and I'll still remember that scene in the Royal Rumble, which where Stone Cold Triple H, the Hurricane comes out, he tries to choke slam both of them, it doesn't happen. What, but they're selling like, like them both getting choked, and then they just look at each other and go, "What the?" And then they just launch him over the rope, and I just thought that is just fantastic. Well, and it got over because obviously it included eventually Molly Holly, and then we had one of the guys that was in 3 Minute Warning that came on as like his sidekick as well. So there's a lot of good things that came out of that, and Shane Helms is just a great wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
He was like X-Pac without the drug issues at the time. So what about you guys? Was there anybody that you thought was maybe came out of it unscathed?
Well, I'd say probably Just Incredible, because he ended up in that X Factor with X-Pac and
Yeah.
Albert. So he get through pretty much unscathed. I think that's because he was more ECW. He did do a few stints in WCW, but he was mainly an ECW person.
Yeah.
But for WCW people, I'd say probably Billy Kidman was the least affected. Because you get people like Chris Kanyon, and they buried him. Hugh Morris, we all know the stories about what they done to him.
Yeah.
And it's like all those years, and they still held a grudge against him.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. What about you, Tony? Anybody spring to mind?
I mean, other than what's been said, probably not as much. I mean, it was obviously, depending how you look at it, people that, acted as members for it that had went on to do pretty well. When you look at obviously your Rhino,
yeah,
went on to do really well. It's easy to kind of pick out the likes of the Dudleys and stuff like that, and even William Regal, who.
Yeah, and I mean, in fairness, like when the angle was going down, like they were already WWF guys that turned, so they were already making their name on it. So I'm more thinking like, I mean, another one that I think was severely underrated was Lance Storm.
Yeah,
I thought he slotted right in with, like the kind of mid cards of the time. Like Chris Jericho was starting to break into the upper card. Like, obviously Benoit when he came back, I think would have been, also great for Lance. I also like the fact that he was essentially like a more technical Steve Blackman, because he had no sense of humor and no personality, but they ran with it. Especially his "If I Can Be Serious for a Minute." Every time he said that, I would just buckle laughing. Because it was just fantastic for me.
The thing about that is they put him in a tag team with Mike Awesome.
Yeah.
Mike Awesome is not the best wrestler. He's not got any character.
Yeah.
But he's big. And the moves that he can do, he does them really well. He's never, ever hurt anybody in the ring, considering it looks like he's hurt a lot of people.
Yeah.
But everybody that's been in the ring with him had said, no, safest guy you can wrestle. He's not the best, he's the safest. And putting him with Lance Storm, people thought that was going to go down hellishly, but it actually pushed Mike Awesome up a bit, because he started training with Lance and let's look, you can do this. And he got progressively better. They buried him, but he got better, and they could have pushed him to be, maybe not like top tier, but he could have been like upper mid card Intercontinental Champion easily. He could have had a long run with that if they'd decided to use him well. Somebody else that get through vaguely unharmed was Steven Richards.
True.
Because he went on to the Right to Censor.
Yeah, definitely. And it's something we kind of have briefly discussed before, but I think Right to Censor was just out of its time. I think they would be a great stable like now, like in the times that we're living in now. Like they would, but they wouldn't be seen as heels. They would be seen as like the biggest baby faces. because they're fighting against smart vulgarity and all this kind of stuff and
Or
supporting political correctness and wokeism and all that stuff.
yeah,
There's such a way that they could play with it, and it would be fantastic.
but they would need the right people.
I think getting Ivory back and having her as the stable's lead would be good, because she brought it back for the Royal Rumble that's in 2022. I mean, because obviously she got into the Rumble and then got punted back out, but it was the stuff in between. She's coming down telling them they're all sinners and all this kind of stuff. Then she gets punted, then she's going back up going, yeah, well, my soul is clean and all that kind of shit. And I was like, I missed that. It was just a nice wee bit for me. And I'm like, that could be an interesting thing to bring back and have her as like the manager of it. Like me and Toner have been talking previously about how we liked The Undertaker's Ministry of Darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And Toner made a good point saying that when what we should have done for Undertaker kind of retiring was try to build like a Ministry of Darkness 2.0, and it would kind of lead to, you know, Undertaker kind of going away. Essentially, it's like a passing of the torch kind of thing, and still keeping that legend alive. Well, so they could do something like that with right to censor if they had the rights to censor.
Right to censor would work now, and see when they brought it out, I think it was just a bit too late. See if they'd had it in like the Attitude Era.
Yeah,
that would be fantastic.
Perfect.
Oh yeah.
I mean, just think of all the things that were happening during that. They would be right in their element. I think they were just 10 years too late or 10 years too early.
Yeah, they're just stuck in the bit in the middle. Well, but yeah, I think they would have been pretty awesome. Well, and one like in two, I think was there only two women from the Alliance, Stacey Keebler and Tori Wilson.
There was obviously there was Stephanie McMahon as well.
Yeah, but technically she's a WWF original. She literally came from his balls. So,
are you sure about that though?
Well, there's also the conspiracy theories that were going around and stuff. We'll wait and see.
No, Mighty Molly.
Yeah, Mighty Molly, Holly.
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, she did not bad. So in a way, if you look at it, like the women of the Alliance actually came out better than like 3/4 of the male card, because
there was Jazz as well.
Jazz was good though. Well, again, Jazz was solid. Well, and again, it's somewhat because no one gave a shit about the women's scene at the time. Well, again, like, sorry, but true.
Well, it's not that they didn't give a shit. It's just they were there for people to have a wanker. That was it.
Yeah, definitely. Mine was Keebler all the way. Definitely.
I mean, at one point, it was just a puff of smoke that was coming out.
Yeah, it just basically turned my room into a furnace. Well, it was great. But yeah, but in a way, because they didn't give a crap about it, in that sense, they had nothing to lose and everything to gain. They gained more pretty women. Which was essentially, okay, that's it. And, you know, everybody came out smelling her roses. Like Tori Wilson actually became a decent wrestler. Because she decided to put the work in and go for it. She done great. Jazz as well. Very sound in the ring. Same with Mighty Molly. And Stacey Keebler, she got legs, she knows how to use them. Anytime she did a cartwheel, I was set.
I think she made a better secretary.
She went on to bang George Clooney, so can't exactly complain at that, can you? So yeah, some very interesting that the women's side of it actually pardon the pun, came out on top. But yeah, so when it got to like that point of, you know, getting to Survivor Series, and bear in mind we had some banging tunes during that run as well. Puddle of Mud's Control, brilliant song. Drowning Pool, Bodies, Let the Bodies Hit the Floor. That's a banger of a tune for the naughty teenagers like myself and like Kev. Obviously, Tony, you were the other side. You were more the kind of rap side of it, and all that kind of side. But still, some good. It was still good music. As part of that run. Tony would have liked the fact that Stephanie McMahon had also had a boob job during that point.
I noticed.
Yes, we all noticed.
Everybody noticed.
Yeah,
it was like she's been away for it. Oh, what?
Yeah, it was like, oh, she came back with two airbags.
For me, they always looked that big because I was that close to the screen when she was on.
So she, in a way, helped your eyesight because you could move back from the television.
Ultimately, yes.
Stephanie McMahon, I don't know, you will never see this, but if you ever do, you saved this man's eyesight. And that's a good thing because he's an epileptic.
Well, I suppose it depends how you look at it, because I was always told if I played with it, I would go blind. So
Too bad they never told you, like, you know, if that was the case, like, you would have seizures and you'd be like, son of a bitch. But yeah, and that's another thing as well, that the infamous rhyming contest between Chris Jericho and The Rock came about during that point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, you've got, when we were talking about Jericho was talking about Rhino, saying you've got a man beast and a hose beast, the gore and the whore. And then it got to The Rock's one. It was like Booker T and Shane, the punk ass sucker, and the service boom. And he was meant to be cut off by Stephanie at that point, but she missed her cue. So he had to say it. He had to say motherfucker. And then she was like, stop. Too late. But the only pair, and I remember watching that and just rolling on the floor. And I'm like, no way did he just say that? Kind of like what Booker T did with an infamous Vince McMahon segment. We won't go there. But the only person that could have got away with that, though, would have been The Rock. Maybe Stone Cold.
Probably.
Yeah. But what did you make of the decision to gift Kurt Angle the title, because it was around the point of 9/11, and he won the title? I think that was the right call. Totally. I did not agree with the fact that he lost it so quickly. Man, it just went right back to Stone Cold and right back to type. It just gave them that, okay, there's 4 weeks. Make America great again. Bye. Would you guys have wanted to see Kurt Angle still have the title and then defect with the title again, if that was the way it was going to go down?
They probably should have went that way and have him defect with it, because then that shows, oh, look, the Alliance has the title again.
Yeah.
Because it had it for most of the time when Stone Cold defected, and then he was the champion for that entire run.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, he disappeared. They took the belt off and gave it to Kurt Angle, and then he came back and just beat him up. They should have went like that, so that when he defected as we found out.
Yeah, the infamous.
But that could have showed that, wait, these guys are legitimate. You know, they've had all these titles for this long.
Mm-hmm.
And like again, when they done the Survivor Series, there was the unification matches, and whoever had the titles, if they were a member of the Alliance, they were safe from being fired if they lost. And it was like a lot of the WCW, ECW people kept their belts. So it's like, you knew that these people were going to be safe, even if for like the next 5 years. And it's like, that's shocking that they've actually kept this person and that person. And then Test won the Battle Royal thing and he was safe. And then they done that whole thing where they just beat people up and say, no, I'm immune.
Mm-hmm.
And then that get dropped very quickly, because he's like, look, I'm just coming off with a douche here.
Yeah.
I don't like it. So they just buried that.
I still think some of his best work was with Stacy Keibler.
Mm-hmm.
I know they were banging in real life, and it was that eventually led to the downfall of it all. But their chemistry was so good. Her like being his marketing agent, and like the infamous, you know, like The Rock has the people and Test has his testicles. And him just coming out with a haircut, and she's going, right, say it. He's like, no, say it. I love my testicles. And everybody just bursts out laughing. I thought, it's a bit of blue humor. I'm okay with that. And it was
I mean,
ironic because he said it on SmackDown.
his tag team work with Albert was really good as well.
Yeah.
Because
TNA.
yeah, because
With their Stratus, ironically.
yeah, Albert is a terrific wrestler. If you actually go and watch some of his like New Japan stuff,
oh yeah,
so he is brutal, and I'm not surprised that when he come back and like retired from active wrestling, they're like, you need to train people, and that's where he is to this day still.
Yeah,
and people are saying that if it wasn't for him training some people, they wouldn't be at the level they're at.
Yeah.
Austin Theory, they now, has said that if it wasn't for him helping him with his in-ring style, even though it's completely different styles, because Austin Theory's like a bit more of a high flyer, but ever since they've started training him with Matt Bloom, he's get so much better, and I'm actually enjoying a lot of his stuff now. Since they took the phone away from him and left all that crap, it's like we don't need that. We had that with Edge and Christian. It was funny back then. What he's doing is just boring. It's been done 20 years ago.
True. Very true. And let's talk about like the belts as well, because there was a lot of belts. There was a lot of titles that were on the line constantly, and they were constantly jumping back and forth. But it was strictly WWF and WCW ones at the time. There was no ECW titles that were put in.
No.
I mean, if it was already confusing enough, why didn't they add them in?
Because Paul Heyman didn't sell the rights to use the belts. They were his belts. If anything, because they were still doing the replicas and that money was going to him. If he sold the rights to the belts, it would go to Vince.
That's true.
And he's like, I'm not giving up my entire company to you. I'm keeping some things because these are mine. I made these.
Right.
I made these what they are. So that's why they didn't get any of them.
Fair enough. But Toner, do you think that this is an outside one? Do you think William Regal could have made a good leader of the Alliance? I know he eventually turned with being the commissioner and stuff, but I think him from the start, maybe coming in from the start, defecting and going back to that kind of, the blue blood kind of guy that he was back in WCW, like, and just, or going like, how he wound up later on is like totally crazy William Regal, like proper back to like a brawling style and really like evil. Do you think that could have worked as a leader?
I think 100%. I think even to look at it even further out, and you look at his work with NXT was outstanding, in every aspect of what he'd done. Obviously, now you appreciate all the people that work kind of behind the scenes on that, but he was getting so highly praised for all his work that he was doing, and a lot of people saying how him being one of the major catalysts for how far that had kind of pushed on. And I feel like it could have been him way early on if he was one of the guys that was kind of fronting the Alliance, because he's great on the mic as well. He does a lot of good. I actually think it's probably one thing throughout the years that gets overlooked a lot is how good he was on the mic. And it's all about times. He gets overlooked for that because you look at who else was about then. So it's very easy to overlook that. But when
he could hold his own because I mean, we all know the infamous, it was Stone Cold coming in like demanding like title shot or whatever, and William Regal just like railroaded right into him and was just basically like, I'll knock your bloody lights out, because it was just Tajiri hiding in the background, like, what the fuck? What? And it was the genuine look on Steve Austin's face. It looked like he was like, I did not fucking expect that.
Which, just on a side note, I thought was one of the coolest moments was because obviously you had Tajiri at his side.
Yeah.
And when Tajiri eventually get put in a match and you then just seeing this wee freaky guy doing mental kicks and everything else.
Yeah, and the
It
mist.
was just the crowd's reaction on stuff like that.
Yeah.
Was brilliant. But yeah, no, I mean, I definitely think having Flair, fucking,
Yeah.
I've not slept.
Well, you're
having
just jumping the gun
Regal,
because we're going to talk about that next anyway.
having Regal being more at the forefront of that, I think would have been great as far as the storyline goes. As it would have done anything for his kind of career wrestling wise, but look at what he's achieved now and since then. So I think it would have had an impact in that.
Yeah, well,
and the thing is, he's the only person to actually have been paid by WWE and AEW at the same time. Because when he left, he phoned Vince. He's like, "Look, I've just realised I've still got an active wrestler contract with you that runs out in April. But I've signed on for this. Obviously, I know I can't show up on their show until then, but they're paying me from then because I'm doing backstage stuff." And Vince was like, "That's fine. Don't worry about it. We'll pay you up until April.
Yeah.
And you don't need to show up."
And in a way, it shows kind of the respect that Vince did have for him. What I mean, don't get me wrong, letting him go in the first place was a fucking stupid move. What has been proved because the second Triple H got back in power, he went, Regal, come back.
Yep.
So everybody in there knows his worth. And everybody knows his worth.
Just his match with Goldberg in WCW.
Yes.
I mean, Goldberg thought, right, I'm coming out for a squash match, and then this guy starts laying into him, going, no.
Yeah.
And that's what buried him in WCW, which is why he left. He's like, well, I'm going to go in and do what I do.
Yeah.
I'm not jobbing to him. I'll lose. I'll go in, but I'm going to have a match with him. He's not going to brutalise me like what he does with everybody else. Yeah. I'm not that type of guy.
Mm-hmm. No,
so
you don't get a reputation with, all that type of stuff for nothing.
Exactly.
But since Toner had mentioned, and let's talk about the Flair-sized elephant in the room. But because no sooner had this angle ended, Flair was on the scene. And everybody that knew their WCW felt like they had been kicked in the nuts. Again, sorry, Toner. But everybody felt like it was an absolute gut punch. And they originally had the plan of going back to the invasion angle.
Yeah.
But it was going to be Team Flair v Team Bischoff. And be like, you guys tried to do an invasion angle and it failed. You tried to invade here, didn't work. Let me show you how a real invasion is done. And it was going to be NWO, Goldberg, and Shawn Michaels was touted as well because he was going to be joining NWO. And obviously he was coming back at that point. So it could have been, here is the question. Because Vince pulled the idea because it was like him having to admit defeat that his idea didn't work. Would you guys have been interested in that 2.0 if that was the kind of roster that was planned?
No. They've done it. It failed. Let's leave it at that. Why get back and then try and fix something? It served its purpose at the time. We got what we got out it. I think, universally it's agreed, whether there was people believe there'd be good moments, better moments than others. But overall, it was great. Leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
There's so many other ways, as we see, that you can do all these different angles with, and we've seen it how many times, Survivor Series and things, like team on team and people going and building their own team. It's storylines that they can very easily put out and push into play. The invasion angle failed, and it's left in the past at that.
Yeah. Overall, critically, it was seen as a dud. But the Invasion pay-per-view was one of the highest grossing pay-per-views outside of the Big Four. Which
Bear in mind that
which shows there was interest
matches.
there. And that Invasion, the Invasion pay-per-view was good, aside from the Austin finish.
Yeah, but I mean, like, what was it? Was it not like 10 matches in the course of 3 hours?
Something like that, yeah.
You
And one of them including like the epic comedy of errors, but it's so bad it's good, the ref v ref match. Because you'd sent me the picture that of that, like the promo for that match, Toner, and I was laughing because I was watching it as you'd sent that. I'm like, has he hacked my phone or something? But yeah, it was so comically bad that it was good. And the entire pay-per-view itself, bar the Stone Cold turn at the end, for me, was a great pay-per-view. I personally think maybe they should have done one more pay-per-view and wrapped it up then. But they were just trying to milk they were just trying to milk a dead horse. And that was it. But if you guys had to pick, like, kind of from the Invasion thing as a whole, is there a match is there a match that you particularly enjoyed from it? And what match would you have wanted to see?
Well, I'd say the final match of Invasion, because the build up to that was spectacular, and it hadn't been played out. It had got to the head there, and they should have ended it there, or like the next month, like you were saying, just have another pay-per-view and that's it. But stretching it out to November, that just took it. But the whole Stone Cold turn at the end of that, if they had left that and he could have turned on them the next week, they could have made them lose legitimately. Stone Cold defect to the next week with the title. That would have been fine. But making him do it there wasn't to further the story.
Yeah.
It was to show that no matter what happens, no matter how many people defect, WWF's still going to win.
That's true.
And it could have buried Stone Cold by doing that.
I genuinely because I did lose a lot of respect for the character of Stone Cold after that. Like I thought WrestleMania 17. Okay, when you think about it, there was no really other way that I personally think it could have gone with him turning heel. The 2-man power trip was a great turn of events from it. Even the comedy of errors duel with him and Kurt Angle, got a couple of laughs out of it, even though I still think it was shit. But yeah, after that, an Invasion, I didn't look at the character the same way. For me, but then again, there was a lot of things like that. What about you, Toner? Is there a match that you would have wanted to see, or a match you think was like particularly good out of it, was like your favorite from the Invasion angle?
Honestly, I would say, probably surprisingly, my favorite match would have had to have been RVD and Jeff Hardy.
That's mine. Is that the one at Invasion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say is that, don't know, I think there was a lot of spots in different areas that I thought, yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
But if I had to pick out a match that I thought, do you know what, just simply sitting watching that match was fantastic. That's got to be the match. I mean, obviously they'd done it at Invasion and at SummerSlam in the same year.
Yeah.
And I think they put on two cracking matches. I personally would have said the Invasion one slightly better, but SummerSlam was a great match as well.
Yeah. I like the Invasion one more because it felt like a legitimate, company v company kind of match. Like they both had equal skill sets. They were both actually quite well liked at this point. RVD was starting to get a wee bit of traction from it.
Yeah, all through the entire Invasion angle.
Oh yeah, his stock just
all the
rose and
Invasion
rose.
people were hated. RVD came out and everybody's chanting for him.
Oh aye. Yeah,
which is why they couldn't bury him. They couldn't bury him.
The pops for him were crazy, even with Stone Cold trying to bury him, essentially, and it just didn't work because they were like, give him a title shot. Well, and yeah, so that's like the only match that I felt, or the two competitors, where there was you genuinely didn't know who was going to win because they were both that good. So we'll give our 10 of our Dave Meltzer style ratings of the entire angle out of 5. Right. So Kev, we'll start with you.
Well, like I said, I did enjoy it, but it was played out. It was far too long. So just because of that, I'm probably going to say about 2.5.
Right. 2.5
just because
that's not bad. That's 50%.
Yeah,
that's
it's just
that's all right, actually.
It was far too long, though. If it was
Yeah.
half the time, they could have done it then, and then left it after that.
Toner?
0.25.
There we go. There's a toner rating right there.
And I'm being honest, and I'll very quickly justify that with saying, irrespective of what says about wrestlers and getting buried and everything else, when you're wanting to see two companies going against one another, an invasion angle, you want to see top men from company A against top men from company B. You do not want to see anything else other than that. Yes, there's going to be some mid-card match, some kind of runners that are going to do jobs and are going to propel through that. But that's the names you want to see. Also, they dragged the absolute arse out of it. As I said earlier on in it, became predictable. You knew what was going to happen. I would have said probably 90 to 95% of the time, you kind of knew what was going to happen with certain matches, certain segments, certain shows. And it was just drawn right out. If it had ended sooner, I would have probably been a lot more for a higher rating. But no.
Right. Mine's will be the highest rating, by 0.5, because I'm going for 3 out of 5 stars. Because I didn't have the knowledge of who the top guys were. I had more knowledge of who the top guys were in ECW and WCW, really admit it. But I didn't have a knowledge of who they were. I was intrigued to see what these guys had, what their skills were, and I was genuinely surprised by guys like Booker T, Lance Storm, Billy Kidman, Shane Helms, even guys like Chuck Palumbo and stuff. I could see why they were there because they had the Vince bods that Vince looked for. So I could see why everybody who was there. And the matches themselves, aside from the Brothers of Destruction against Chronic, I wouldn't say there was a particularly horrible match. That one was diabolical. That was probably one of the worst things to happen in television.
That's because Chronic was like, we're not jobbing to them. We're not jobbing to you. And then when they went out, Vince stopped Undertaker and Kane and said, kill them. And the Undertaker and Kane just brutalized them. Yeah.
But yeah, so overall, aside from definitely that one, and maybe another couple here and there, I was when they tried to do the Shane v Vince again, an episode of Raw, I was just not. I was because that one at WrestleMania 17 is one of my favorites. So I was no, you've just shat all over it. Not a fan. But the things for me that take it down was what they done with DDP and the Stone Cold thing. And also the fact that they just ripped the arse out of it.
Yeah. But
that being said, at the time, I thoroughly enjoyed it. The soundtracks were bangers that were released around that time. There was some comedy gold. There was some great wrestling. Some top stars came through afterwards. I was all right with it. And they had an impact on the business as a whole as a result.
I mean, during it, Austin got Undertaker to break character, made him laugh. For half a second, you seen him laugh and then he covered his mouth.
Yeah,
but he done it.
But also, but there was also a bad point, as Tony rightly pointed out today when he was speaking to me. At that point, Undertaker was ginger.
Yeah.
Poor guy. So yeah, we have covered the invasion angle, I would say very extensively. And So until next time, everybody, I have been Andrew Durnan. I've been joined once again by John Toner and Kevin Tierney. This has been Raw's Ginger. Good night.
Yeah.
Cheers.